Thanos has arrived, he's snapped, and all of the meta decks are now missing half of their cards. Who will be avenged as far as these decks go? So, for the past 2 years or so, we've seen a number of established groups enter the meta, take their place among the highest ranked decks, and then just kind of stay there. They've proven themselves in terms of consistency, playability, and reliability. However, with Fabled comes rotation, and now I've counted those top meta decks are all missing like 25 to 35 of their cards, which means that the decks will really be hurting as far as kind of their consistency goes. Does this mean they will survive, or does this mean they're just going to rotate into infinity? Well, let's take a look at what's leaving and what could replace it, or how the decks could change to be able to survive this snap. So first off, there's a number of decks, or sorry, second off, I guess, there's a number of decks that have entered the top, but towards the end of this kind of core, there was four big decks that constantly would show up in the tournament results. There was Ruby Sapphire Actions, there was Amber Steel Song, there was Amethyst Ruby Bounce, and then there was Emerald Steel Discard. Now, there might have been other variations of those decks, but those are the main ones we're going to talk about today. So let's start off with, what are we doing? We're doing Ruby Sapphire, so the Maui's Action deck. So why was it a good deck? First of all, it was a very strong contender, especially in the late game. It had the ramp from Sapphire. It had the sweepers and the removal from Ruby, plus the big characters that could really kind of finish. It relied on being able to wipe the field with stuff like Be Prepared or Big Sisu, and then reset with their own powerful characters or locations in some cases. So let's take a look at what the deck loses, and let's see what's left of it afterwards. So first off, it loses some of its powerful fighters here, like Super Goof. Goof is great because he had Rush, was able to challenge immediately and gain you lore from it, which especially for like a low-costed character, was able to get you a good amount of a good amount of challenging at the beginning to kind of keep some of the decks down. We're missing Grandma Tala, which is was good for like being able to look at the top of your deck, pick some cards. Maui Hero of All, so a lot of the challenging and the rush with that one. Big Sisu, which was one of the sweepers. How Far I'll Go, which is a good ramp one. Popsicle, which is draw a card, and McDuck Manor, which really reset you because it's stuck on the field to gain you lore after this one here. Be prepared. So as I said, in depending on the build of your deck, this is between 20 and 30 cards that the deck is missing, which sounds like a lot to replace, but I think it's one of the least amount of cards that are missing as far as the bigger meta decks go. So what will happen kind of with this deck? My prediction is that it goes one of two ways. It either goes to one of the other builds we've seen from Sapphire Ruby, which is more of the item style deck, which I think does a lot better now without a lot of the steel removal because cards like Oswald can stick around and actually kind of shine and do their thing. Another way that this could go is it could completely scrap Sapphire and it could go to Emerald. It could be more of like the Christmas actions that people are playing. I think that the Christmas actions is a really good idea for the action style of deck because it still does have a lot of the sweepers. Which the sweeper that is sticking around is Under the Sea. And it does have some good action cards as well, like Mother Knows Best to bounce things back to your hand, and even some of those fun, not so fun discard cards like Sudden Chill. So that's my prediction with that one is that this deck will either go to the action side or will go to and switch colors completely and go to more of the Emerald Ruby. Next off, we have put that right there. Next off, we have Amber Steel right there. All right, so Amber Steel is it was a favorite one of mine. It was a really consistent one for Steel Song, and it's been consistently at the top of tournaments for a very long time now. What it used was effectively costed songs with paired with singers that could sing them almost perfectly to be able to remove things from the opponent's board and break their tempo while pushing on their own tempo. It is losing a lot of key cards, so let's kind of look at some of those. Let's start at the very high end of that spectrum here with Cinderella Stouthearted. Cinderella Stouthearted, awesome card. She was only like a one or two of in a lot of decks, but she was a good finishing piece. At the opposite end of that, we have Mr. Smee, Bumbling Mate. He was a good aggro card, could really push Steel Song on towards that finishing line, especially towards the beginning because he was a two-quester. And he paired really well with cards like a Rapunzel here because Rapunzel could heal him the damage that he put onto himself and be able to draw you cards. Solid singers we're losing are Ariel, who would find you cards from the top of your deck, and Cinderella, who was like your perfect first turn singer to be able to sing songs like Let the Storm Rage On. And Ariel, at the very least, could sing songs like Then Along Came Zeus or Grab Your Swords. So those are the three big removal pieces that Steel Song is losing. It is keeping like one removal piece, which is a lot for the deck to lose. Last one that we're missing is A Whole New World. We've known about this one for a while. It was a great way to reset your hand. There are other replacements for this for ways to draw cards with Steel Song, so it's not like the drawing cards is going to be a problem, but the removal totally will be a problem. The deck, I think, will really suffer without having those removal because it was counting on that to be able to break your opponent's temple. So what's my predictions here? Very similar to Ruby Sapphire. I think it goes one of two directions. Either keeping with the amber steel colors, it could switch to a deck that has shown up recently, which is the aggro list. We've done a lot of testing of that one. It seems very strong and like a really good contender. And I do think that amber steel, that is where it is going in this current meta. If Singers wants to survive, I think that it's got to switch colors because there's just not a huge amount of songs that you want to sing in steel anymore, at least not for these color combinations. I've been trying out a amber amethyst magical list, really good, really strong as well. And so those are kind of my predictions there. Either it sticks with the colors and it switches to a different build, or it switches colors completely and sticks to the singing strategy. Next off, we have Bounce. So Bounce Control, big one from the beginning, from set 2, this one came out and was just like a powerhouse. It is a fantastic deck because it is very consistent. The fact that it has so many enters and leaves place abilities, and then it's got cards that bounce their cards back to their hand, meant that they were just able to get so much value off of those cards. It too is hurt quite badly here. Again, depending on the amount, depending on the build that you're looking at, you could be losing 30 plus cards for this. And I think as far as like individual card options go, it had the most amount of individual cards leaving. So first off, Fox, it'll be hurt by the absence of Fox. Fox was just a solid way to just remove things from your opponent's field and bounce it back to be able to do it again. So you're not actually losing any characters from that. On top of that, she could bounce back characters that had enter play or leave play triggers, which meant you could just keep getting more and more of those the abilities that benefit you. Similarly, Snake is leaving. Snake was far less of a problem than Fox, and it's mainly because of the lack of rush here, but she also was good at being able to get you back things to your hand, and very, very effective fighter at her ink cost. Speaking of the leaves and enters play triggers, we have Merlin Rabbit and Merlin Goat that are going. Gain lore, draw cards, paired with Fox perfectly. And then we're going to look at some of the red cards because those are towards the top end of the spectrum there. So Maui was a great fighter. It could, while you were bouncing your own cards, he could come in and just clean up your opponent's field because, I mean, 6/5, there's not much to do about 6/5. And then on top of that, if you had something that bounced him back into your hand, you didn't even lose him in challenges. You could just pull him right back to your hand. After you did things like Be Prepared, Lady Tremaine was a great one to play because if your opponent can only play just one card a turn, Lady Tremaine and Madame Medusa pretty much kept the field empty for you. So they're both great that way, and they're both gone now. And then as far as actions go, we have Brawl to get rid of smaller characters, Dragon's Fire to get rid of whatever you want. Friends on the other side to draw cards, one of the best and most effectively costed draw cards in Amethyst. And then we have the sweeper of Be Prepared. So this, like I said, was just great to get rid of everything on the field and then to be able to reload your own hand with big characters or characters with enters plays triggers like Lady Tremaine or Madame Medusa that could keep the field empty for you. Last thing that it is missing that's going to be very sad to see go is Queen's Castle. This was a great way to draw cards and also A great way to gain lore. I mean, 2 passive lore is awesome, and then if you just sat characters there and played Be Prepared, you could, or whatever, I guess, you did if you sat characters here, you could, gain the cards off them, and if you did Be Prepared, you could still get the 2 lore off of it. So that's kind of what is leaving in that. What happens with this? I'm not 100% sure because this deck didn't necessarily have another form of these colors that was showing up to be able to pivot to. I do think that some version of this will survive because they are two very strong colors. The ruby is really good with big characters and actions, and the amethyst is really good with drawing cards. But since so much of this deck is leaving, especially with the bounce package, which is what made it such a good deck, I'm not 100% sure what will happen here. My first guess is it's going to lead into actions because of Maui Half Shark and Genie. However, I would also say that it could potentially lean into evasive as well because evasive is something that both of these colors have, and evasive is pretty difficult to deal with. Last but not least, we have everybody's favorite deck, fan favorite here of Emerald Steel. So the discard deck is good. Everyone's going to be very happy to hear that it is hurt very hard by rotation here. Mostly the bird and the prince being gone is what hurts this.
Not the bird.
Not
the
Josh loves bird, I guess. Me and Josh complain about the bird a lot at home, and neither of us are super sad to see him leave. In fact, whenever we would design decks, the first question would be, "What do we do about the bird?" And the second question would be, "What do we do about the fox?" So not sad here. But what does it lose exactly? So let's start off with Morph. It's one that pops up every now and then in this list. You can shift onto him, and there are a couple shift targets that you would want to use for Morph and be able to benefit from them right away. The nice thing about Morph was that if you did have a bunch of stuff that shifted in your deck, your opponent didn't necessarily know which one was coming out. And that would mean that Morph would need to be dealt with. That was great if you could keep Morph out there and be able to shift him, but he did tend to catch a lot of removal spells, which did kind of use up your opponent's cards. Diablo's leaving. So sad. The stupid bird is gone, and nobody's going to be very upset about that. Evasive was tough to deal with. It was one of the best ways to draw cards, and when you pair that with Prince John, which was like another best way to draw cards in these colors, specifically benefiting from hurting your opponent with discard, it's no surprise that this deck is going to be really hurting from this without the card draw. Ursula, Deceiver of All, fantastic card, especially with the steel removal. She could double sing songs like Strength of Raging Fire or Let the Storm Rage On, which would just help keep your opponent's board nice and empty. Muses was great, especially with all the songs in this, to be able to bounce the small things and keep your opponent's board nice and empty. Next form of card draw we have attached to a character, Beast Tragic Hero. So this is one that we could have shifted onto Morph. You typically just wanted him to sit there and draw you cards. However, a 3/5 that got bigger if he had damage on him, and Quest for 2 was not bad late game. Hypnotize is leaving as well. It is a discard one now. There are discard cards that are coming back, so it's not like the discard strategy is leaving, but this specific card is. And then we got 2 songs here. Let the Storm Rage On, which we already said is leaving. Great, deal 2 damage, draw a card, which worked really well with Ursula. And then we don't talk about Bruno, so return chosen character to their player's hand. Great kind of bounce with that. So what's my prediction here? I don't think discard leaves, and I don't think discard leaves because people do love it as far as a strategy goes, and there are still discard and kind of control cards in Emerald, with kind of like Ursula Deceiver, Chip, and kind of the levers. So I think that a version of it will exist, but I don't necessarily think that it will be the threat that it used to be. There was another version of discard that was there, which was Amethyst Emerald. And it was a very strong one too. It played like a quarter of the deck was birds. However, almost all of those birds are leaving. And so unlike most of the other lists that I've talked about here, where I think that they're going to pivot to another color combination or another kind of strategy that's out there, I think that the Amethyst Emerald list is hurt a lot more and does not survive rotation. So the steel one is, I think, the only one that is a potential contender. I do think that there are other versions of Emerald decks out there. Emerald Sapphire, I totally think will be a thing. However, I don't necessarily think that it is the discard list that this one is. So that's kind of the gist there with what's leaving and how each of the decks will be affected. 30 cards is a lot to leave, and so these decks will not survive as they currently exist. However, they might be able to pivot and find something else to do to make them stronger, or perhaps they just live in infinity where they can thrive and be the wonderful or super annoying decks that they were in core, and that will leave us room for new meta decks to enter. Where where's the conclusion to this? We have to kind of wait till Fabled comes out and more tournaments are out there to be able to see exactly what is going to come out from this. Personally, I still want to be able to play Singers. I'm going to play it in Infinity. Ariel and Cindy will live there, and Rapunzel, and I will get to play them there. And I'm thinking of either kind of like the racers or the princess for core, perhaps kind of like singers with madrigal. I'm really liking that one if I can get that list to work out. And then I'm gonna, for like kitchen table Sunday casual, I'm gonna totally do my puppies again. So that's kind of where we are with standard and core, and I'm very excited to be able to report on whatever happens next.